Sir, I'm in touch with the minister's office. I'm trying to just reach to her secretary. We can start with the opening comments, sir, if by the time she joins. Actually, she joined in between and then she logged off. I'm in touch with her office.
And they're saying, do they say some time now, right now, or?
No, her PS's phone, I have dropped her a message. She is going to reply to me. The minister had joined actually when Secretary Sir was speaking. She had joined at that time. Then she saw Secretary speaking, so she logged off. I'm trying to get in touch with her again.
Dr. Reddy, would you like to start with your opening remarks, and we can request Radhika and Rukmani ji to come in, and then by then the minister would join.
The only small caveat, Nirja, is that as minister joins, we'll stop momentarily or as a logical break.
Yes, we can then welcome her in. Yeah.
Check with her also her timing, because she may require to get off at 11:30 possibly.
We'll do that. We'll do that. If you could just kindly start, sir.
Good. Thank you, Nirja. With that, good morning to all of you again. I know Ms. Radhika Bharatram, Dr. Rukmini Banerjee, Professor Anil Sahasrabudhe, and we'll probably have the Honorable Minister joining us fairly soon. A good morning to all of you and a very warm welcome to the 10th CII Education Summit. As the outline for this session in the program suggests, early childhood care and education had so far only been early childhood care, that from the policy perspective. The education piece was missing from it so far. Preschooling was considered to be the preserve of those who could afford to send their children to expensive preschools. And there were a whole host of them, but there was no compulsion or a felt need to prepare the children to go to the preschool. This was so because the Ministry of Education considered formal education to begin only at the age of 6 from class 1. So below the 6-year age, it was sort of a gray area where there was no set guidelines and rules as how to prepare a child, except for people were saying that we have 12 years to go is for the formal education. Because of the lack of clarity, children from only well-to-do families were getting a scientific preschooling. A huge majority of the children were entering schools at the age of 6 without any formal training, hence were not able to cope with the sudden pressure of learning. Results were poor in terms of learning outcomes, and that's what we heard year after year. In the National Education Policy 2020, changes have been brought about to make education a lot more effective. And therefore, they brought in children in the age group of 3 onwards into the formal education system. So there will be now a proper curriculum or a process for the toddlers. This does not mean they will be burdened with the syllabus from an early age, but just that there will be a proper system to prepare them for school and an understanding on what they should learn early so that their performance at a later stage will be brighter and better and provide them larger opportunities. A point to remember here is that NEP 2020 does not take away the role of the earlier ministry, which was the sole ministry in this area. the Ministry of Women and Child Development. So there are now two ministries in the picture, that is Women and Child Welfare Development, and we also have, the Women and Child Development Ministry, which has a large network of Anganwadis through which prenatal, postnatal, and neonatal issues are being handled so far from nutrition and health perspective. With the Ministry of Education also coming into this picture from a curriculum perspective, it is to be seen, and I'm fairly certain, that working in tandem, that we will see enormous amount of synergy being created between these two ministries. And I'm sure we'll hear about this from the minister herself as she joins us. So what I would do is, I would now request my co-chair of the CII Education Council, Ms. Radhika Bharatram, to share her views. And she'll be followed with Dr. Rukmini Banerjee from Pratham. And in case the minister comes, we'll check with her schedule and decide on the course of action. Radhika, the floor is yours.
Namaste. Thank you, Dr. Reddy, and a very warm welcome to everybody. Namaste, Rukmini ji. Always great to see you and looking forward to your thoughts and inputs. Also, I'm really looking forward to hearing the Honorable Union Minister of Women and Child Development, Mrs. Smriti Zubin Irani, about her thoughts and how this policy is going to get implemented for our little toddlers. I feel NEP policy is probably the most important policy that India is going to be rolling out. Universal access to quality early childhood education is perhaps the best investment that India can make for our children and for our nation. Dr. Reddy, you've already mentioned that the private schools, or so-called the people with access to a play school, have had the ability to lay the foundation for their children to start schooling, but there are many children who don't have that opportunity, and I'm so happy that preschool is going to get formalized. There's going to be a structure. Having said all that, I think the most important aspect which I am personally looking forward to is the curriculum. How is this curriculum going to take shape? I hope we will be leading on to experts to make sure that it is actually truly is made with the child in the center of everything that we do. Policies are great, but if it doesn't work for our children, it is of no use. Also, we all understand the dynamics of our country and how large and how huge it is. And I hope that there is a concept where we follow that, that we are not one size fit all approach is not going to work. We will need flexibility. We'll need to give states the opportunity to make sure that they implement it in a way that it works for that particular area. Two pillars that I really very strongly believe in is the involvement of the parents and of our teachers. Even in the CII task force, we have discussed that parents will need to participate in much larger way, as their support is central for a child at this age. Our own experience at the Shriram schools, where we lay a lot of emphasis on including the parents in the learning journey of the child, has only made the schooling process fun and inclusive. I'm happy to see, unfortunately, pandemic has pushed us in a way where we have seen parents, we've seen grandparents, we have seen extended family, siblings, all pitching in and making sure that the learning is happening at home. This needs to be reinforced in the culture of each and every school in India. And the benefits of this will surely change the learning outcomes, will also help in creating accountability and stronger relationships between the school and the parents. teacher training. I feel there is nothing more important than our teachers. They are the strongest pillar of any educational institute. In-service training opportunities are imperative for honing and encouraging many more young minds to embrace this profession. We don't have many people joining this profession, and we need to make sure that our curriculum and learning opportunities provided to our educators are there. There is an environment where they feel like joining this profession, and it's probably the most rewarding profession. There are a lot of shortcomings in the system where teachers are pulled out for midday meal preparations, for election work, for administrative tasks, and really taken away from what they should be, that is teaching. I hope we will be addressing these issues where our teachers feel empowered, our schools feel empowered, and are actually delivering what they are set to deliver. At CII, we are very, very committed to the foundational year implementation. We want to work with the ministry. We have come out with a white paper, and we are hoping that the ministry will lean on us, and we are looking forward to actually playing an active role in the rolling out of the policy. And at the end, I just want to say that I hope that whatever we do with this policy, we keep the child in the center of all our decisions, that this policy has to work for our children, not for the states, not for one individual, but for our children. And that has to be in the core of whatever we do. And that's about it from my side. And over to you, Rukmini ji.
Mr. Reddy, you're on mute. Mr. Reddy.
Yeah.
Sorry. So thank you, Radhika. We really appreciate what you are highlighting, every issue which is of importance to all of us, whether to do with curriculum, especially because we're experimenting for the first time formally in that age group of 0 to 3, whether we bring gamification or the involvement of these local governments, local state governments, or teachers training, and who are these teachers like, and how do we probably make these Anganwadi workers also to play the role of being teachers, or we supplement with teachers. There's several issues which are there, so well highlighted by you. Thank you, Radhika. With that, can we move on to Dr. Rukmini to share her thoughts with us?
Thank you, sir. Good morning and namaste to everyone. It's really a big honor and a privilege to be able to share the platform with Dr. Reddy, with you and with Radhika, and to have, I think, a lot of people who are listening in to this really important topic. I think both of you have really highlighted the key points going ahead. All I can do is sort of maybe flesh out a couple of thoughts as that we need to keep in mind as we are moving ahead. I completely agree with what you both have said and what a lot of people have said, that this is really a history. I think this looking at the continuum of early years, not just saying that preschool is important, but the fact that this continuum words and treating it like a continuum, I think is an incredibly important moment. And in that, I almost feel like this foundational stage, I think we all know, whether we are architects or not, that a strong foundation is the only way you can build a tall building. So when Mr. Sahasrabudhe was speaking, I was thinking that many of the things that he's saying need to start 12 years, 15 years before in really where our really young children and toddlers are. So just my thoughts. We have, if you think about this like a highway that we are building, right now we have roads. It's not like we don't. We have roads, we have pagdandis, we have kharanjas, depending on which part of the world you're in. And they all need to come together in really a highway that allows a smooth transition of our children on this highway. So 5 points. Shalini had said we have 5 minutes, so I thought 1 point per minute would be a good way to organize this time. So first point I think is, let's think of the 3 and the 4-year-olds. I think the right place for the 3 and 4-year-olds is really in the Anganwadis. There are obvious benefits for health, for nutrition, and so on. But I think even more important is that at that age, children need to be not very far away from the family, and mothers need to be quite close to the place where the children are entering into first kind of an institutional setup. And therefore, at that moment, I think the fact that the Anganwadis can be in your own mohalla, in your own gully, in your own neighborhood, provides a huge advantage because the distance, whether socially or educationally or and the Anganwadi Sevikas is actually quite close. She is usually a member of the same community. And I think that brings huge advantages in terms of bringing what Radhika was saying, mothers, grandmothers, parents, close to the scene of action. Now, across the country, we have huge variations in where our 3 and 4-year-olds are. And if you look at our usher reports, the usher report collects information on young children, which is often not as well known. People look to the usher report for estimates of reading and math, but we actually collect information about where do children go from age 3 onwards. And we see massive variation across the country. There are states like Odisha, where more than 85% of 3 and 4-year-olds are already in Anganwadis, or Chhattisgarh, where this number is close to 75%. In my own home state of Bihar, we see about 50% children in this age group are in Anganwadis, which means that a substantial portion are still not going anywhere. If you don't go to an Anganwadi, you miss out on the benefits of health, immunization, nutrition, which weakens you right at the very beginning of your journey of life. Forget about our education. And then if you come to states like UP or like Rajasthan, UP has less than 20% of their age group 3 and 4-year-olds in Anganwadis. So there's a lot of work to be done in really bringing this universalization of preschool, actually Anganwadi coverage. I don't want to say preschool. I think it is the Anganwadi coverage that is needed, very high in some states and very low. That brings me to my second point, and I think Radhika raised it already, that one size will not fit all. We have different contexts in our different states, as even in the simple example of where are our 3 and 4-year-olds, where are our 5-year-olds, and where are our 6-year-olds. And we need to begin from where we are today and build the capability, both institutional capability, as well as every other kind of capability to do more. But we do need some national goals. I think the NEP, which says high quality early childhood education, that is a national goal. How you get to that goal may vary across states. We have another very interesting thing. Although our Right to Education Act refers to age 6 to 14, the assumption is that when you get into standard 1, you're age 6. Our new education policy, the document also talks about class 1 and age 6. But the reality on the ground is actually there is a very wide variation in when children go into standard 1. And I think there needs to be a national cutoff, national policy on what is the right age to enter standard 1. We see states in which there is high private preschool going, often in the low-cost budget kinds of little schools, where children go into a kind of a setting where they do a lot of very school-like activities very early. And we see a reverse, that parents who have very high aspirations for their children's education, but may not have the economic resources, will ensure that their children get into first too early. Either way, I think this is detrimental to our children's development. You need an appropriate place at your appropriate time, supported by the appropriately skilled people to help your development happen. And so I think that this one size does not fit all. We need to look at where we are, but we still need some national goals and some national guidelines, and very simple ones like what is the age of entry into standard 1 that need to be stipulated. My third point is about transition into school. And I think that, like I have said, that early entry into formal school can be detrimental. We've seen a transition into standard 1 across our own history. For example, for those who are in North India and are, at least my age, you may remember reference to something called a Kachi class. A Kachi class was like a kindergarten, and it just exactly stood for that. It's not yet a class, and it's still Kacha. Assam has a long-run program called Course Trainee, which is really this preschool class. Bihar for some time had something called a Balwar, but all of these were not supported sufficiently. And I think that the idea of the Bal Vatika, right now, what our national education policy says, Anganwadi, Bal Vatika, Standard 1. And I think for creating this transition well, we need to make sure that we have adequate resources for each of these. But at the same time, I would say, if we don't have adequate resources today, it doesn't mean we don't do anything. I think we have to look at what resources we have. I tried to do a calculation, which I'm going to do and maybe share with all of you. How much money, if you have an Anganwadi co-located in a school compound and a primary school, how much will it cost to really provide a good transition coming in? And I think it's not going to be that much. It's a more effective use of the resources, human and financial, that we have. So my fourth point really is just going ahead with this to say, I think we need overall strengthening both of ICDS and of our school system with a view to this transition. And I think that rather than thinking about what money we need for setup, I think we should think about the human that needs to be adequately, supported, specifically oriented people, whether it's an extra Anganwadi worker or an extra pre-primary teacher who really takes on this job of creating the entry onto the highway in a smooth way. And so finally, with my fifth point, I would say that there's been a lot of focus on what curriculum needs to be there. But I think there needs to be 4 strands that really build this highway. I'm not a road engineer, so I should have used better first. But the 4 strands that I see coming from an early childhood lens certainly is the curriculum as to what should be the teaching, learning, interaction capabilities or outcomes or processes that we need to have. We certainly need a lot of thinking on the institutional arrangements, coming together of the 2 ministries at the center, at the state, at the district, at the block, this kind of convergence. We are often very good at all kinds of convergence, but government departments coming to work together will need quite a lot of work. Third, obviously, is financial arrangements and realistic calculations about what do we need this year, what do we need next year, from which resources will this money come. Because like Radhika says, having a lovely policy on paper is not useful to our children. That policy has to affect the daily lives of the children. Only then does it become a goal. And finally, I think there is a huge scope for community outreach. The Anganwadis are very equipped. The Poshan Abhiyan that is going on right now has a huge community component. And a lot of what the things that the Anganwadi does are not center-based. They are outreach-based. And I think to this highway of education, I think this outreach, giving a role for mothers who may not be very educated, giving a role for grandparents who may not have much education, but really are good with children. How do we bring such people? We've done in Pratham large number of what we call school readiness melas before COVID hit. 3 months before a child is going to go into first standard, it's a celebration in the village. Anganwadis would participate, schools would participate. But more importantly, every mother of a child who's going to go to first standard was celebrated, brought in, and activities done. So that, as a whole society, we are supporting this move for early education of high quality. And we are supporting it with the resources that we have as parents, as sarpanch, as whoever we are. So finally, I would say that this strong foundation can be built. I think we are in a very good position. We need national attention and priority, and we need local attention and priority. As CII, you have many members who are already investing both in Anganwadis and in schools. For everyone to see this as a continuum, it's a continuum today with the resources we have, and it'll be a continuum tomorrow with maybe greater resources, more optimal ways of operating. But we need to do this. And in my mind, there is 3 women. And Mr. Reddy, it's not because I don't like men, but I think in this case, perhaps the 3 women that I can see is really the Anganwadi Sevika, the pre-primary and the standard 1 school teacher, and the mother. And they are holding hands. And right in the center of them is this child who's going to grow up to be a very strong individual who is going to be an asset to all 3 of them. So I'd like to stop here. And I'm hoping that this vision is not just a vision. We can really implement it into reality, and we can all do what we can to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Banerjee, for articulating what we should do in terms of our early child education. I have a very quick follow-up question for Dr. Banerjee. You said there are three women who are in the center, not center, the three pillars, and then the child is in the center. The young and body worker, the mother, and the teacher, the child being in the center. But I think as we move into this area, and that's what we're seeing in several other parts of the world too, is technology is playing an extremely important role. Especially we are also talking about gamification, the way in which we can communicate to this early children, the attention span being what it is. I also have grandchildren who are fairly young, and I know how they get glued once the gamification is being done and what teaching is to them. So where do you see the role of technology, Dr. Banerjee?
So I think, sir, you're absolutely right. I think technology is coming to every part of our life. And I see technology not just as a solution, but I think as a trigger to many things. So, for example, I find that the fact that a big disadvantage of our entire education process has been that many parents are not particularly educated and they tend to feel that they're not capable of engaging with kids. I think technology, and we use a lot of tabs, for example, or games in our own Anganwadi work, and we see that handing over actually a shared device. So, firstly, I'm a great believer that you can share things. Sharing brings people together, but handing over a tablet to a mother in a mother's group raises also, apart from what is inside the tablet and what you're going to do with the kids, it raises the status and the profile of this young mother in her community to say that somebody thought her, worthy of being given a device that often many others in the community don't have. And I think that on the device as well, we have to think just about how can you have interactive activities that actually involve participation of not just one. It should not be passive in one way. How do you do with books or with toys? We know how to do that. We know how to make it very interactive. We know how to, if you have 5 children around you, you can involve 5 kids. If there is a family and so on. I think our technology and especially the content has to be geared not just to urban middle class and upper class families where there will be single use and child being left alone. I think you need a lot of innovation. And how do you do things that encourage participation, several kids being able to use this thing together and being able to interact. I think that's the kind of challenges that a lot of our software development, both in India and abroad, are for this nuclear family. Child will be said, take your, go sit in front of the TV or look at the tab because I'm busy right now. And I think you need to get away from that. I think whatever you prepare needs the involvement of several people in it. And that's will be what will be enriching to children. So you'll have to be involved, Mr. Reddy. Every time your grandchild picks up the tab, you'll have to be there.
In addition to the tab, I think we also see one-way communication using digital media for teaching.
Yeah.
I do have some experience in that. We do have a foundation which runs about 28 different schools, the government schools. And we've found them fairly effective too, because once we get into a digital media of instruction, there's a fairly standardization that's coming in. And the quality could be consistent across. Not that we are ignoring the teacher or trying to downgrade the teacher. We're only saying at this point of time that the teacher will supplement the role. And it's worked very well at the lower classes. I'm sure Radhika has a lot of experience in running much larger number of schools. What are your thoughts, Radhika?
I've always said this when the pandemic started. Typically, the kids were, before the pandemic started, the kids were running away from school and didn't want to go to school, and teachers were running away from the technology. I think pandemic has reversed it. The teachers have embraced technology beautifully, and the kids want to go back to school. from our experience, working with the blind, visually impaired, I think technology has really enabled not only our teachers but our children. The access to information that they have now is phenomenal, and I think all teachers everywhere in the country and in the world have had to unlearn and relearn, and I think that's what pandemic has done, and that's what technology is going to be doing going forward. The even in like Shriram schools, the whole concept, initially it used to be that it used to be a passive kind of a thing, but now so many group projects are happening, and I totally understand what Rukmini ji is saying, that there is a possibility of creating group activities and teamwork and collaborations, those big words that we've been talking about, and technology does enable that. And also, I feel that going forward, when this pandemic is over, when we do open schools, technology is going to be a great enabler in providing quality education to many, many children. Now, accessibility is not a problem. And learners, even teachers, have gone through this huge change, a huge learning curve that they have gone through. And I think it's not going to stop. It just won't stop. Be an integral part of our educational system going forward. And of course, you cannot ever replace the teacher in the classroom. The teacher is the center of everything. We should never forget that. I know it personally from my kids are dying to go back to school. They miss the interaction. A teacher is a mentor. She is a counselor. You cannot, technology cannot replace that. And I think what will also I envision maybe 10 years, 15 years now, I think teachers are going to be mentors. They're going to be counselors. And there is going to be a technology which will be providing them with the knowledge. So you don't need to be a content hub. A teacher will no longer be just a content hub. She is going to be much more than that. And I think we should start focusing on mental health, enabling our, even our teacher training programs need to have a component of counseling, mental health. And these are going to be issues that our children are going to deal with, whether you're in rural India or in urban India. Issues faced by children are the same. Growing up issues are the same. So we have to make sure that our teacher training program, and I keep coming back to that, really has to go through a massive revamp.
But I'll take from there on teachers training that you talked about. My impression is now we probably will get another a crore of children into the education system, and that's roughly, maybe if not a crore, there probably will be somewhere in the range of several lakhs of the children who will come in. And especially the first year, when we start this initiative, we'll have those 3 years of children coming in, third year, fourth year, and fifth year children too. So there is a massive requirement in terms of infrastructure. Along with the infrastructure is also the ability to handle the other softer issues of midday meal scheme that has to go by, and the teachers, as you rightly pointed out. And one of the things that people have been talking about is, for these children, can the 10+2 graduates, that's basically 12th standard children who probably have the ability to care these children, can teach them the basics, know how to operate the technology, could be one way of resolving the problem. But this is a massive issue. Do we have even Anganwadis? Do they have enough of space at this point of time to accommodate this big influx of children? While I fully appreciate the government's initiative in bringing the early childhood into the education system, but are they planning the infrastructure? Are they allocating enough of budget? Are they thinking of others? So either of you, please.
So I think that, again, different states, different districts are at different places on this. And I think that often when policies or guidelines are made, there is a line item either for everyone or not for anyone. And I think it's important. Like, there is a very large number of Anganwadis which are co-located inside school premises. Now, many school premises have space, may have appropriate infrastructure or may not. And I think it's important because in the what is possible is often decided at a local level. I've seen, for example, in UP last year and the year before, the UP government wrote to the rural development departments as well as to the panchayats to say, if you have any funds that you have available, use it for upgrading of schools. And if you drive through UP today, as opposed to, let's say, 4 years ago, you'll find that many schools with local resources, local rural development or panchayati raj resources have actually redone their schools. So I think resources are some what is allocated to you, but a lot is what can you raise from the community, because the children who are in the school come from, and if you look again, and this is why I feel that we need to do some amount of financial calculations, which are not done at the state level or center level, but done at the village level. So, if you want to run a primary school and 3 Anganwadis in a village, what does it cost today? And to improve it, what would it cost additionally? I've seen, for example, in Punjab, we work with the Punjab Education Department and have helped to set up their pre-primary class in their 14,000 schools. In many of these schools, there is an Anganwadi that is present. And if you talk to principals and school people, the teachers who realize the importance of this have embraced the Anganwadi without any formal guidelines into their schools functioning. So there are local solutions, I think, which can be very indicative of what do you do. Today, if there is a financial allocation made for India, it probably should go into public health, because we can see the absolute weakness of our public health system in dealing with the public health crisis. But at the same time, we have a new education policy and we want to do all the right things. And I think you have to look at innovative ways in which, to me, if you think something is important, you find the money for it. And whether you find it from this pocket or that pocket, you will find the money for it. So we should stop thinking that only the central government can help us to, put this policy in place. And unless I get an Excel sheet with a line item which has a number in it, I can't do anything. You've got to be innovative. We have many pockets.
Amazing. Thank you very much for this positive attitude you have. Radhika, your take on this? Before I have one more question for both of you.
I just wanted to, in fact, ask Rukmini ji about the particular Anganwadi. How will it all come together? And also, Dr. Reddy, there are a lot of private schools which have smaller private schools which have pre-primary sections. They do have it, but the issue again is what are the outcomes from there? I think if the intent is there, it will happen. I totally agree with that. Also, I do believe that somehow the word profit is not a good word in the education system, especially for private schools. And if this needs to be implemented, there has to be somewhere the money has to come from, right? And I think that this issue always sort of puts private schools on there's a guard down. And I think we need to have conversations around this where, private schools are not perceived as this money-making kind of institutions, but actually doing a good job and their intent is good. It's not like they're fleecing people. That misconception, we need to have more talks about it. And the word profit, we really need to have a talk on that and have it removed, because if you want to implement this policy also in private schools, money is required. Central government is not going to give it to private schools. So where is that money going to come from?
Running out of time, but I'm tempted to ask the last question to both of you. And the question is about language. That's another emotive issue that goes all around. Actually, to the extent that our neighboring state, the issue is even fought in the courts at this point of time. Where the medium of instruction at even school level, at primary school level, they want to move it into English as opposed to mother tongue. Any takes on that, Dr. Banerjee?
Yeah, so I was hoping somebody would ask this, so I'm very happy you did. So, think about a family, right? We all have children at home. What happens in the family is that we don't talk about a family language and a mother tongue or a father tongue. Everybody starts speaking the child's language. In fact, as soon as a child is born and starts speaking, the vocabulary in the whole family changes because we are using the words that the child uses. I think that should be our language policy. Use the language that the child is most comfortable in, especially at this younger age group. And that's why I feel that these 3, 4, even 5-year-olds being in Anganwadis is really important, because there, the language of the Anganwadi Sevika is the same as the language of the mother, is the same of the aunt. People walk in and out of the Anganwadi quite easily, flexibly. Distance between the center and the home is quite close. So if we want our children to thrive, we have to communicate with our children in the way that they want to be communicated to. So my theory is use the playground language. Don't even worry about the mother tongue or the father tongue, because children often in urban slums are playing in the language of their neighbors. And so start there, start with where children can understand you and where you can understand the children, and then build upwards into whatever is the medium of instruction and so on. But this, again, this continuum of early years is a fantastic place to bring children's needs first, rather than what is the need of, other people who are sitting very high up.
Radhika, before we close the session.
I totally agree with Rukmini ji on this, because we've experienced that in our school. I've experienced this as a mother. My son was not speaking English till he was probably 5 years old, and Hindi mein baat karte the, and that's how it happened. And I think, again, put the child in the center of what you're doing. You have to communicate with them in the language that they understand. And I think it's a very, very important positive move. And I also feel, and I'm talking about now the urban schools, there is, English just plays a very important role in judging who you are. And I think that concept also bothers me a lot. Agar aap Hindi mein bolte hain, to aapko English achhi nahi aati. That means you're not very well educated. These are all things that actually stops an individual from achieving their goal also. And yet this whole concept of English phobia also, I don't really understand. And so I think it's very important that we embrace all our languages. And I really do mean it in true spirit of it. Of course, the kids they adapt everywhere that they go. They will pick up the English language. You have to teach the language they most there'll be no fear also that you don't know English, and that needs to be taken away.
Thank you, Radhika. What a pleasure talking to both of you, Dr. Banerjee and Radhika. I really appreciate your thoughts, and especially the 3 favorite topics of mine: technology, infrastructure, and language. Amazing, absolutely. I believe the minister got engaged with something else, so therefore we are not in a position to get the minister right now. So with this, we'll conclude this session and hand over the floor back to Nirja. So thank you very much, Dr. Banerjee. We really appreciate you taking time and spending time with us this morning. Thank you, Radhika.
Thank you.
I will close this session here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
So, thank you all the panelists. We have the next session now at 12:15, which is on leadership of academics, especially in turbulent times. So we'll have Professor Soumitra Datta of Cornell University will be joining us. So we will meet again at 12:15 when AICT Vice Chairman Dr. Punia will also be addressing us along with Professor Soumitra Datta. So I request all the delegates to please stay tuned. You can look at the exhibition, digital exhibition, which we have put up. There are lots of reports in the library. You can take a look at the reports, see the exhibition, and come back here in the conference hall at 12:15. We will meet again. Thank you.